Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Thanks for having us in. And I wanted to start off by pointing out just what a bipartisan effort this is. Representative Hillstrom and I serve on the Capitol Area Security Commission, and it is an important issue that we are about to talk about. So the two of us will speak briefly, but it is for an investment in Capitol Area Security. The bill does talk about some of the things. But because it is a very detailed and perhaps sensitive report, if you have the desire to see it, we have the ability to get you in front of a copy of the report that was done. But our request is really thinking about the hundreds of thousands of visitors that come down to the Capitol area every year and making some of the needed investments we have in safety. So I will stop and let Representative Hillstrom talk a little bit, and then we'll have our testifiers do the majority of the work.
Representative Hillstrom, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm the newest member of this committee. I was appointed when Senator Schoen left the committee. This has been a 6-year project. The Lieutenant Governor serves on this committee, as well as the Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court. So in addition to it being bipartisan, it is bicameral in the House and the Senate, as well as the Governor and Supreme Court. So there is consensus around this. Every member of the committee has signed off. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would ask for your support and turn it over to staff.
Welcome.
Thank you, Representative Hillstrom and Representative Nash. Mr. Chair, I'm Chris Given. I am the Director of Facilities Management here on the Capitol Complex. So we kind of operate and maintain the buildings that you see around the Capitol building. And I also serve as an advisor on this committee and have been with the committee since its inception back in 2012. So I have a short statement to read just to give you all some background. And I also have with me Captain Eric Groski. He is the commander of Capitol Security here on the Capitol Complex. So we work in tandem to maintain, operate, and keep the facilities as safe as we can for the inhabitants and the visitors here. So with that, I'll go ahead and start. As Representative Hillstrom mentioned, it is a multifunctional committee that consists of members from the House and the Senate, Republicans, Democrats, Lieutenant Governor, Chief Justice, and advisors from private sector as well as law enforcement. So based on recent security assessments to the Capitol complex that occurred for the Capitol complex, there's a threat that ranged from opportunistic criminal activity to well-planned extremist attacks. Our committee commissioned a consultant to conduct a complete physical security pre-design to mitigate the vulnerabilities on the Capitol complex against these threats. Over the years, there have been many security studies that have been done on the Capitol complex, but they focus mostly on operational security vulnerabilities. This pre-design was different in that it addressed the physical vulnerabilities of the buildings. The pre-design was conducted by architects and engineers and security professionals. It focused on structural, landform, and architectural elements of the structures. It assigns a security risk level and priorities to each of the facilities, and it provides a roadmap for physical security improvements on the complex. The pre-design was completed in October 2017. The pre-design identified 139 vulnerabilities across 13 buildings on the Capitol complex. I might add that in this pre-design, the Capitol building is not included because those security elements were included with the restoration, and the Minnesota Senate building is not included because security improvements were included as part of that construction project. The risk level is based on potential of loss of life, assets, and impacts to government operations. The priority is based on the urgency and the need to eliminate those vulnerabilities. To reduce the vulnerabilities, the pre-design recommends the following types of security upgrades to the Capitol complex. Installation of bollards, which are posts or other objects that stop vehicles from approaching the facilities. Installation of projectile-resistant glass in select locations of our buildings to help mitigate the effects of flying shattered glass that would result from bomb blasts or other explosives. Installation of additional card readers to secure non-public areas of our buildings. Construction of security kiosks in those facilities which do not have them. Incorporation of utility protection features to guard exposed utilities and power sources. Installation of entry controls on parking facilities adjacent to the buildings. Installation of additional emergency call stations throughout the complex. Securing our vulnerable building air intakes to limit exposure to hazardous materials and explosives. And similarly, providing window well protection for those windows on the complex that are below grade, where people could drop things down in there and cause harm to the buildings and the people in them. The committee is requesting $33.5 million to pay for this initiative. Funding must come from two sources. $24.4 million of bonded funds will pay for the upgrades to the buildings originally constructed with GO bonds, and $9.1 million in cash is needed to complete the work on those facilities that were constructed with other financing mechanisms such as revenue bonds or trunk highway funds. In summary, the implementation of these recommendations in the pre-design will provide practical solutions. It's not the be-all, end-all, but certainly these are practical solutions to improve the safety and security of the people that work and visit here, to the more than 9,500 people who do work here on the complex, without making it look like a fortress. And it will, these improvements will allow it to remain open and inviting to the hundreds of thousands of people who visit here. And again, if there are any members that would like to take a look at the security or the pre-design, it's quite a thick document. It's pretty comprehensive. We like the way it's laid out because it does list the vulnerabilities by priority and risk, the buildings by risk. You can contact the house sergeant who can get a hold of me and we can get a copy in front of you. So, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, this concludes my statement today. If there are any questions, be happy to try to answer those for you.
Mr. Given,
Yes, sir.
first of all, did I hear correctly? You said 139 possible,
Types of vulnerabilities on the complex across the 13 buildings that this pre-design deals with, which are mostly those buildings around the mall, except for, again, the Capitol and the MSP. Does not include the BCA up on Maryland Ave, and it does not include some of the shop areas across 35W or 35E.
thank you for clarifying which buildings would be included in
Yes,
this.
sir, it's everything that you see out front of this building here across the mall.
Representative Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't know who this question would go to, but when I think about the Capitol complex and the ability in which people can move about sort of unfettered with no verification of one ID, but also I know that we've made it real clear in the past that for an individual to carry guns on campus, all they need to do is notify the sergeant or Capitol Security that, you know, they will be on campus and they have a gun with them. And I mean, we're looking at 1/10 of the cost of the renovation of the Capitol for security in the several other buildings around the campus. And I'm curious, you know, and maybe it is in the report that it talks about the vulnerability of members and the general public because of, I mean, we're one of the few capitals and one of the few facilities in the country that there's no set of screening that you have to go through to actually, you know, be in the presence of legislators, lawmakers, and all of that. So I'm curious if you could just speak to what the report said about those types of things, and I guess, you know, give us some reassurance that if we're going to be spending, you know, over $30 million to make our campus safer, that it will actually make our campus safer.
Representative
Given.
The assessment for the Capitol building was done with the restoration project, and certainly there were different risks and vulnerabilities that were discussed through that. And that building is equipped so that if it is ever decided that something like you're talking about needs to be implemented, it could be implemented very quickly.
Representative Dean.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm thinking about the other buildings on the campus, like this building, like Centennial Building, and some of the other buildings on campus that, again, Department of Transportation is a pretty vulnerable building.
Absolutely.
And legislators and people are there all the time. So my question is, as we're looking at spending over $30 million, what type of improvements in safety are they buying us, or is it really just comfort that are being bought?
Mr.
Representative
Chair,
Nash?
Representative Dean, I would encourage you to come by and look at, one, the report, and two, the planning. And I mean, we could go on for a very long time here in committee, and some of the information is sensitive as to expose to people who might want to do us harm where the vulnerabilities are, so we don't want to share it in committee. But I would say the things that are being addressed are to address perhaps more dramatic situations than you have described. I mean, if you read some of the things in the bill, you're seeing bomb blast reduction and so on. So I think that those are the sorts of issues that we're looking at, and I know that the report is, well, the pre-planning report is exhaustive, let alone the initial report that was done that identified and articulated what the exposures are. So I would encourage you to talk to the sergeant and set up time to look through it. And I think those would answer your questions, because I had some of the same questions. What is this going to do? It's a lot of money, but it is something that we owe to, what do we have, how many people work here?
About 9,500.
9,500 people that work here and hundreds of thousands of visitors. And it's something that we owe it to the public, who come down to do all sorts of things here to shore up the defenses here at the Capitol.
Officer Roski, did you have comments?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman, committee members, Representative Hillstrom and Nash, and the other members of the advisory committee. My name is Eric Roski. I'm a captain with the Minnesota State Patrol and the director of the Capitol Security Division. I just wanted to comment that these security improvements would certainly enhance our ability to reduce the risk of harm here on the complex. We recognize it does balance the security and access needs that are important to everyone. And also, as Representative Nash mentioned and Director Given, addresses several of the identified vulnerabilities that we've been dealing with for quite some time here.
Representative Jurgens? Representative Hausman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't hear Representative Dean asking for the particulars. I heard him asking if we spend 35, is it? 30. Million, will our campus be safer? And then he juxtaposed that with another, an observation that right now, people all they have to do is inform State Patrol that they have a gun and they can carry it anywhere, and we don't screen anywhere. They would have that permission. My understanding is the answer you gave to that is, but if we did all this, eventually, if we wanted to deal with that, we could. But it is by no means covered here. And so doesn't that suggest a very specific answer to his question?
Director Givens?
Representative Hausman, again, that's more of an operational issue. We're putting measures in place that will stop people when we want to stop them. Whether or not we start screening, that is more of an operational issue and not so much a facility issue. And so the report, although it outlines things that, as I said in my statement, puts security kiosks in the area where we're actually watching people come into the buildings in addition to the cameras that are there. It doesn't talk about the operational issues that Capitol Security and DPS would be following. And that's what made this so different from all of the other studies that we've had done over the many years. This talks about vehicles getting up close to buildings, people being able to get back into areas that are not public areas. And so it's those facility hardening factors that this really deals with. It doesn't deal with our policy on what we screen and what we don't screen. So to answer your question, representatives, you're not going to find, the design for a metal detector in here, or where one would be placed. It talks about being able to monitor who's going in and out, and how you can lock a building down and talk, and protect the building from elements that could cause a lot of harm to that building and to the people inside it.
Representative Hillstrom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is about 140 acres of buildings and property, and about the actual structure, the physical structures of it. We have not talked about the operational policy since I've been on the committee yet. But this is the first step of making certain that people and the buildings are in place to protect those that we need to.
Representative Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, if this is about safety, then at what point do we say that we probably need to have metal detectors? And at what point do we say that maybe, the ability of individuals to carry firearms on the campus need to be reported in a different way, or other types of things? I mean, look, we're not protecting the buildings, protecting the buildings. We're protecting the buildings to protect the people that are in the buildings. And so ultimately, we can do these improvements to protect the building's vulnerability, but we're doing it for a reason, and that is to protect the people. And I just, I'm not on your committee. I don't know what type of conversations take place, but I just hope at some point that, if we're going to spend over $30 million, we need to have that much broader conversation. And I realize that given the current climate of conversations around some things, it might be a really hard conversation. But I don't know about you. I didn't come here for the easy conversations. I mean, the easy conversations have all taken place. So I would just, hope that as we move forward, and as, your committee looks at the safety on the campus, that the in-depth dive takes place about if we're going to be investing over $30 million to protect the buildings, to protect the people, then we really need to also talk about how do we protect the people at best. And if I could just add,
Dean, continue.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to, commend the Sergeant of Arms and the Capitol Detail and folks, because I've been in some pretty harried sort of crowds, and I've never really felt threatened. And I think part of the reason is because of the presence of the uniform folks, and maybe even some of the non-uniform folks that are around here. So I just want to make that clear, that this isn't coming from my own fear of my own life. If I die tomorrow, I die tomorrow. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we don't try to make sure that everybody's able to lead their fullest life possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Representative Sock?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Representative Dean's question in a different way. Who sets your topic of agenda?
Well, Mr.
Representative
Chair,
Nash.
Representative Salk, it is driven by the people who sit on the committee.
Okay. So it's
Representative
not,
Sock.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
It's not external from you, like the speaker or the governor, the president, pro tem, or anybody of any other. It's an internal thing that you guys sit down and say, I think this is a topic that has become ripe and we should start to move into it.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Nash?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Salk, yes, that you have it right. If the members of the committee brought that forward, we could certainly talk about it. But I will point out that the conversation and the piece of detail that Representative Dean talked about was, I think, discussed predating my being here at the legislature, and it was, I think, dealt with, and it was by a very bipartisan approach that that was not a direction that they wanted to take this. So, and I forget who was the.
Yvonne Partner-Solon.
Yeah, but who was the DFL lead?
Michael Paymar.
Yeah, so Representative Paymar talked about that, and it was ultimately deemed that the law-abiding citizens carrying a gun on the campus was not elevated to the level that people felt that it was a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no other comments, Representative Nash, Representative Hillstrom, any final comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.